Hello everybody, it's been a while. What can I say? Sometimes you just have to recharge your batteries, which I have. So anyway, let's get on with what I've been watching, reading, doing. My famous watch pile made a small dent. So I watched Colour of Money, Tom Cruise, Paul Newman, the great Paul Newman, the great Martin Scorsese. One of his best films of the 80s, along with King of Comedy, I would say. Can't go wrong. This is a great film, and actually, I think it's Tom Cruise's best performance because you actually hate the cocky little shit. And he kind of comes like that in real life, really, doesn't he? Robert Max Cry of the City, classic film noir with Victor Mature and Richard Conte. Just good stuff. Robert Mack was a really good noir director. I wouldn't say it's his best, but top 5, yeah, definitely. Right, Alex Garland's The Men, or just Men, actually, just Men. Nah, don't know. Beautifully filmed. I think the trailer sold it as a folk horror. It kind of has aspects of that, but the ending with the Green Man, which obviously is folklore, I don't know what to think. I get what the points it's trying to make about trauma, and you know, I mean, Rory Kinnear plays every male in the film apart from the lead character's boyfriend, who's only in it briefly. But Rory Kinnear, the great Rory Kinnear, like his dad, great actor, plays every man down from the landlord of the cottage she rents to a schoolboy in a Marilyn Monroe mask. And then, kind of like that Aphex Twin video, Come to Daddy from years ago, pulls the mask off and it's Rory Kinnear's face on a child's body. Yeah, so that's the kind of vibe at the end. But I kind of get what point it's trying to make, but folk horror, I wouldn't class it as folk horror. John Wayne, William Wyler's, William A. Wellman, Island in the Sky, based on a true story, survival story. William A. Wellman's a great classic Hollywood director, and it's quite an interesting performance from Wayne, because he's not gung-ho, it's just a survival story, so it's really good, and beautiful shots of, I don't think it was filmed in Canada, I think it was filmed in Colorado or somewhere like that, but great aerial shots of planes. Wellman flew with B-52s in World War II and stuff, or flying fortresses, can't remember, but anyway, he was in bombers during World War II, so great aerial shots, great landscape shots. Pretty underrated Wayne film, and Wellman film, I would say. Oh, speaking of tying back to Colour of Money, I also rewatched King of Comedy, which is fantastically dark, fantastically funny. De Niro should have stuck to this kind of black humour rather than whatever happened in the 90s and recent years. Dark, but brilliantly made, obviously. Jerry Lewis is the famous TV star, kind of like Johnny Carson, the Kidnap. Kind of playing himself, which is, when you read about the man, it's kind of a revelation that he would agree with it with Scorsese, but he did. Some good extras on that this guy as well, actually. Books, it's been a really good month, or past 4 or 5 weeks for new releases, and a lot of them, well, 2 of them non-fiction. So the first note I read, and I bought the audiobook and listened to as well since, is Rob Wilkins' biography of Terry Pratchett, A Life with Footnotes. Rob Wilkins, for those that don't know, was Terry Pratchett's assistant for 18 years, something like that, right up to the end of his life, and he completed what Terry had wrote before he succumbed to Alzheimer's. So the footnotes, like in Teddy's Discworld books, are little sarcastic asides or factual things like this, and that's mainly what Teddy wrote. Rob Wilkins wrote the main, because it was like all little fragments like this that Teddy Pratchett had wrote and was left of his autobiography, obviously suffering with Alzheimer's. It's really moving in parts, really, especially towards the end. Really funny, and quite revealing in places. In fact, he was a grumpy old bugger sometimes, which we're all going to turn into that, really, aren't we? One I'm still reading, but I'm taking my time with, because you just have to, with Alan Moore, and that's Alan Moore's first collection of short stories, Illuminations, that was released last month. So yeah, first collection of short stories. One's been published before, the first one, A Hypothetical Lizard. I can't remember what, he was published in a magazine in the 90s, I think, that one, or a compilation, or another anthology, but that's the oldest story in the book. All the other stuff, I think all the other stuff's new, what he's been writing over the last, how many years is he since Jerusalem came out? 6 years. I'm on the story Illuminations now, but the next one is What We Can Know About Thunderman, which is apparently his absolute takedown of the comic book industry, like he hasn't been doing that for the past 30 years. But yeah, I'm taking my time with it, because Noah's prose, I find, can be quite dense. I've only read his first novel, A Voice from the Fire, 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago actually, and that's kind of like a dry run for Jerusalem from what I've heard about Jerusalem. I've owned Jerusalem for 6 years since it came out in the big thick UK hardback, but now it's kind of turned into the elephant in the room, because it's, yeah, not only is it big, it's dealing with big ideas, which isn't a surprise from Moore. Other one, non-fiction, that came out, and I read this in 2 sittings. It was here when I came home from work last Tuesday, and I finished it when I got home from work last Wednesday, and that's Tarantino's first non-fiction book. Obviously last year he published his novelisation of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is very good, by the way. But yeah, this is cinema speculation with a great photo cover of Sam Peckinpah and Steve McQueen on the set of The Getaway. But yeah, I devoured it. I don't agree with everything he says. I don't agree with everything any film critic says. I love reading about film, and this is his take on like the death of radical Hollywood, well, the death of the golden age of Hollywood from I suppose the 50s to mid-60s was like the death knell, and then he comments on how like Easy Rider changed it to like radical Hollywood, and then it was New Hollywood, which is my guys, Scorsese, Coppola, De Palma, Paul Schrader, Spielberg, kind of out on his own, but yeah, them guys. And he basically talks about each chapter's like, there's bits intercept of like autobiography about when he first started going to see films he probably shouldn't have seen, which I relate to, because I saw plenty. In fact, there's an entire chapter on Deliverance, when he talks about the first time seeing Deliverance when he was a kid. And I did, and I had exactly the same response he did, because I didn't know what they were doing to Ned Beatty. I just thought, that poor man, they're humiliating him, they're bullying him. Only years later you find out, yeah, Ned Beatty has to squeal like a pig, and he's for a reason. But yeah, Tarantino talks about that exact same feeling I had when I was a kid, too young to watch it, but I did. I watched a lot of stuff like that when I was too young. But yeah, most chapters are like one film, and it does go off on tangents, but you can hear Tarantino's voice, not hear it in your head, but his voice it's his voice. He wrote every word of it, and you can tell. He goes off on wild digressions about who should have been cast in The Getaway, or he was talking about in one chapter about who should have been cast as the pimps in Taxi Driver instead of Harvey Keitel. because apparently they couldn't find an actual white pimp in New York at the time. But brilliant, loved it. As I say, I didn't agree with everything in it, but that's film criticism. Book I've been reading for a couple of weeks, still am, and I just keep dipping into it. He's famous New York. No, what paper did you write for? Doesn't matter, but famous film critic Pauline Kael, and this is When the Lights Go Down, and that's 75 to 80. There's different volumes, 60, 65, stuff like that, and some after this until she retired in 1990. I don't always agree with everything Pauline Kael says, but she's a great writer. Her reviews have got real insight, and she championed directors that weren't necessarily championed at the time, which is, when you read them, you think, well, why wasn't everybody else saying that? Because obviously they're great directors, but believe me, a lot of critics weren't about some of the greats at the time. But Pauline Kael always seemed to have a keen sense and a really sharp wit at times. She's really good. I'm going to have to get all the rest of these volumes, actually. And going down that whole New Hollywood thing again, I picked up, I've been back in the garage. Keep saying garage like American. I've been back in the garage at my mum and dad's and picked through some more books. And more New Hollywood. It's Schrader on Schrader, so Paul Schrader, long form interview like the Scorsese on Scorsese and the Cronenberg on Cronenberg one, and a couple of others I've got, can't remember. But yeah, and I'm good because it isn't in the greatest shape anymore. I really did read this and Scorsese, like, I mean, look, my books don't do that now. But yeah, good stuff. And then, as I am wont to do, and often do, I made 5-6 films into my watch before I buy, and then about 4 or 5 weeks ago something clicked in my head, or I read something, and I go down entire rabbit holes with directors and writers, and I do it all the time, and this is mainly stuff I already owned. Well, yeah, so I owned it all anyway, apart from this one, which I found for £3, and I remember watching this when it came out 6 years ago. It's a really good documentary. Just De Palma, that's what it's called, Brian De Palma. It's Noah Baumbach that directs it, and basically it's just him and De Palma sitting talking, obviously clips of films and stuff, and you never say Baumbach in the actual documentary. It's all on De Palma, but Noah Baumbach's asking the questions or having the discussion. Great documentary, no extras on it though. And then obviously I just went down I've been going down an entire De Palma rabbit hole again. So I've been rewatching like his earlier stuff, like Obsession, which was his first real Hitchcockian thriller. Sisters was before this, so it was Sisters was his first real split screen extravaganza, Hitchcockian extravaganza. I can't remember what year this is from now. I want to say 74ish, because this was just before Carrie. Yeah, he met Carrie after this. But yeah, this is like one of his takes on Vertigo, and I don't care what you say about De Palma, say he's just a Hitchcock ripoff. He's just great. He does use the same tropes as Hitchcock. He's making thrillers, so obviously. But what De Palma does for me is, like Hitchcock, mind, I won't deny that, but De Palma's got a lot more toys to hand. He's got Steadicam, he's got split diopters, he's got better dollies, he's got better cranes, he's got, and De Palma for me is a director who is a 360 director. And by that I mean, there's famous scenes in all his films of two characters just standing talking or sitting talking at a table, and the camera does a 360 right around them. But that's not what I mean. That is 360, yes. But in all De Palma's set pieces, you know exactly where each character is in that location, and the camera gives you a view of that location, and you know exactly, it could be a overhead shot, it could be a 360 pan and shot right around the characters, but you know where that action's taking place, in what space that action's taking place. So it's kind of architectural in that way, and kind of like purely visual. You know, he's showing you, this is what I want you to see through the camera. This is what you've got to look at. He's showing you precise little things. So yeah, love De Palma. So yeah, that was one of his early ones. Then of course, a film I think better, a lot better, and it came out before than the overrated Rocky Horror Picture Show, is De Palma's Phantom of the Paradise, which is basically his glam rock Phantom of the Opera with the diminutive singer. That's a joke out of Tarantino's book, by the way, Paul Williams, who played Little Enos in Smoking the Bandit, but was a fantastic, still is, I mean, fantastic songwriter. And yeah, he did sing on some of his own albums, but as a lyricist and a songwriter, brilliant, absolutely fantastic. So yeah, Paul Williams, William Finlay, who was De Palma's one of his oldest friends, who plays the Phantom in it. He appears in most De Palma films, and this really scared me as a kid, actually, part of it, especially like that scene there where he gets the eyeglass broken, his mask, and it's just a staring eye. And William Finlay had crazy starey eyes, and he terrified the piss out of us. But I can watch it now. But good pastiches of 50s rock and roll, doo-wop, glam rock, glam rock and rock, just great stuff. And Jessica, what do you call her? Jessica Harper. This is introducing Jessica Harper, who later went on, well, I think a year later, went on to make Argento Suspiria. So, little connection there. Scarface, a film I also saw, De Palma film again, obviously, a film I also saw when I was too young. In fact, I think it's the only film I remember my mum coming through and knocking the VHS off when I was watching it, when I was like 83, so probably watched it 84, so I'd be 9-year-old. But I watched Mad Max and stuff like that all the time, even The Godfather and stuff I was watching at 9-year-old, because my dad would just let us. But yeah, I can vividly remember my mum coming through and knocking the video off when the shower scene, and you don't actually say anything. But yeah, it's been a long time since I'd watched this, and I watched it a lot in my teens and early 20s. And then obviously it turned iconic for hip hop and stuff. But when I was a kid, it was just Pacino being an absolute maniac. Another De Palma film. We're talking about De Palma now, okay? In case you hadn't gathered, De Palma film I loved when it first came out, 86 or 87, when we got it in England, is The Untouchables, and it's just pure entertainment. Sean Connery won an Oscar for it, playing an Irish cop with a Scottish accent, as his Connery wanted to do. Just great set pieces, great action. De Niro as Al Capone, come on, with the baseball bat. Gruesome, but yeah, just top entertainment. And it was like one of De Palma's commercial, one for them, one for me kind of films. One I hadn't seen, I only watched on Sunday, and then I had to go hunting on the internet because this doesn't include the director's cut, this disc. So this is Arrow's bog standard Raising Cane, which is Peep and Tom, Michael Powell's Peep and Tom meets definitely Psycho again. Because I mean, there's even a whole scene of the car going into a swamp, like on Psycho. But John Lithgow as the main character who's, not to spoil anything, is just, he looks demented as each one. His eyes are just like crazy demented, and his performance is crazy demented, even when he's playing like the husband. I'll be like, I want out of this marriage. But yeah, it's over the top, even for De Palma. I mean, he's referencing himself in the entire end set piece. He's referencing referencing just about every set piece he's done, and it all comes together. But yeah, I'm dying to say the director's good, because apparently it's completely different. But yeah, it's not top tier De Palma, but I enjoyed it because it's just so over the top. And tonight I've just watched or rewatched The Fury, which was De Palma made 2 years after Carrie, and it's basically the same subject matter, telekinetic teens, but based on a novel by John Faddis, which I'm gonna have to find. And he wrote the screenplay for this. But beautiful stuff in this again. Great cast: Kirk Douglas, Amy Irving, John Cassavetes, for God's sake, Charles Durning, Dennis Franz, 2 actors that De Palma kind of discovered, really. But yeah, and the first head blowing up scene I'd ever seen in a film or a horror film. I mean, this is more Hitchcock in his thriller with telekinesis, like Carrie's, I suppose. But yeah, this was the first head explosion I'd seen. In fact, it's not just Cassavetes' head that goes; it's the entire thing from several different angles. Because I think De Palma had like 8 cameras on it at the time for the special effect. Amazing. Scanners is better though. And for me, he's I'd say these 2 are his masterpieces, and one again's a take on Psycho, but one's a take on another favourite film of mine, Blow Up. So that's obviously De Palma done Blowout with John Travolta and Nancy Allen, who was Mrs. De Palma at the time. And as I say, Blow Up is all about David Emmons as a photographer thinking he's seeing or taking a photo or something. This is John Travolta as a film sound guy, and he is the blowout that's part of a government cover-up or assassination. And he rescues Nancy Allen from that. But it's just pure cinema. It's just pure cinema in all aspects. Camera, cinematography, sound, especially because that's the main subject of the film, and Travolta's best performance, I'm going to say it, in any film. Which wouldn't be hard these days, because he does make like 40 a year, and they're all direct to DVD or streaming rubbish. But yeah, I think this is an absolute masterpiece, and I love Blow Up. I'll tell you a story about that one day. But Blowout, yeah, and an absolutely heartbreaking final shot. Sound and shot, just superb. So I think his best take on Psycho, and I don't think De Palma is just a Hitchcock apist. You know, he's not just aping Hitchcock's style. He's pushing it, and he's saying this is what cinema can do now that we've less censorship, better technology. But yeah, Dressed to Kill, superb, and probably, I mean, there's hints of it in all his films, but probably his most autobiographical film, because Stuart Gordon in this is not Stuart Gordon. What do you call him? The kid off Christine Stewart. No, can't remember. My mind's gone blank again. But yeah, he's the Andrew Dickinson's son in this. And it's basically De Palma when he was a teen. He's a science geek, building his own radios, own electronics. And then he goes spying on somebody, because De Palma had done that with his dad. His dad was a psychologist, and when he was a kid, he followed his dad and spied on him, even broke into his office and planted microphones, because his dad was having an affair. So he basically was a voyeur with his dad to catch him out. And that's another thing that's all through De Palma's films, I think, that the camera as voyeur, as an observer. But yeah, this is, I mean, Michael Caine, he's not in it much, but superb. Nancy Allen, brilliant. And this got heavy hits of like, oh, it's misogynistic bullshit in the 80s. But I really don't think it is, because Nancy Allen's character is the strongest person in the film, really. But beautiful camera work, as always. Great Pinot Donaggio score, as always. Yeah, I'm really enjoying my run through De Palma's oeuvre again. And I've got a few more to watch sometime this weekend. And I'll just finish up on a book I got today in a charity shop for £2. And it's an edition of a book It's the edition of the book I read first in 1992, and it's Clive Barker's young adult and brilliant horror novel, The Thief of Always. I mean, that's beautiful, and it's the first edition hardback. But this is the first, the exact edition I read from the library when I was 15, 16. I'd read The Hellbound Heart first, but this was like quite close to release, I think. But yeah, it's a young adult novel. Great opening line, beautifully illustrated right through with Barker's own drawings. Show you a couple. So that's Harvey, the main character. So yeah, just Barker's beautiful pen and ink drawings all the way through it. Started with every chapter, I think, or there could be intercepts as well, interspersed throughout. I'll find another good one because there is some really beautiful ones. Or I won't. Yeah, I mean, look at stuff like that. And as I say, it's just pen and ink, like broad pen and ink. Great wraparound cover as well. So just beautiful stuff. And I've been looking for this edition for years, the hardback edition like this. I've got a paperback from about 25, 26 years ago, and obviously it's paperback size, so I think the pictures look better that size. Beautiful stuff. Anyway, thanks for subscribing, liking, watching, commenting, whatever. I know it's been a while, but as I say, sometimes you've got to recharge your batteries, and I'll be back soon because I need to do Roy Reads Anything's tag as well. I really need to do that. Okay, thanks folks.